I would just ask everybody involved in the panel just give a very brief introduction of who you are and the relevance, I suppose, of AgTech to you. Ben, seeing as I know you, I'm going to ask you to start that off for me.
Thanks, Corey. I was hoping somebody else would crack it off. Ben Tyrrell is my name. I'm a dairy farmer from County Meath, which is an hour northwest of Dublin. We're milking a herd of Jersey cows there, and we have expanded the herd quite rapidly since milk quotas went. And I suppose we have introduced a number of tech features onto the farm that has helped us with managing both cows and staff, and hopefully trying to maintain our standards and keep all the balls in the air, both with the cows, with the staff, with legislation. It's just sort of aided our expansion, so we're not getting dragged in every which direction. So just hoping to trying to make life a little bit simpler for us as the herd has grown and we've faced new challenges with a new and bigger business.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Who'd like to jump in next for me?
I can jump in next. My name's Sam Waugh, and I also run a dairy farm with predominantly Jersey cows as well. But we're based pretty much right on the outskirts of Auckland, or basically part of the city, really. And our farm's a little bit different. It was given as a gift to New Zealand young farmers, and it's been used as an educational farm. So we work with schools in Auckland to bring students out to the farm to learn a bit about where food comes from and what opportunities there are in the ag sector as well. So yeah, a dairy farm with a bit of a difference. I guess in terms of tech and ag tech for us, it's I guess two factors in that really. One is around the actual farm operation side and trying to drive efficiencies in the business, and I guess solving problems that we have, and also managing our regulation requirements and recording as well. But also, I guess for us, it's about showcasing that ag tech and the sector itself to students that come out on farm as well. So yeah, sort of two main real focuses for us.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. I'm going to hand back over now to Catherine, who's made it into the room.
Okay.
Catherine, both Ben and Sam have given introductions,
that's great. Thank you so much, and apologies, a bit of a computer bug there at my end, so apologies for that. Well, good morning, good evening, everybody. And look, I know that the introductions have started, so we'll keep the flow moving. Just a couple of housekeeping. You've been allocated to this room, but all sessions are being recorded, so you will be able to watch that later. The session will be timed 35 minutes exactly, so we will be cut off in 35 minutes. We do have a Q&A window, which will give you an opportunity to make comments or ask questions. If time allows, we will try to facilitate some of those questions, but I can't guarantee it, as I expect the conversation to flow. So Sam and who else has already introduced themselves? Ben? Okay, you're on mute, so I assume Ben is correctly so. So Ash-Leigh, can I?
Yes, I have introduced myself, yeah.
Ash-Leigh, can I ask you to come in next?
Absolutely, Catherine. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Ash-Leigh Campbell, and I'm a dairy farmer based here in Canterbury, New Zealand. I've been dairy farming since 2010 and accidentally stumbled into the industry, not having grown up on a dairy farm or from a farming background, and I've never looked back. I've absolutely loved all my time since I've been in the sector since 2010. I've done a bit of study at Lincoln University here in New Zealand with a degree in agriculture and commerce, and I've held various roles across the sector since 2010. Most recently, I've just in the process of wrapping up a 3-year variable order share milking partnership with my best friend. We've been milking 900 A2 Kiwi cross cows here in North Canterbury. My day job the past 18 months as well has seen me working for a New Zealand Agritech company that focuses on combining pasture, productivity and virtual fencing with cow wearables. So I love agri-tech. I'm very thankful and fortunate that I work on, I've been on a farm the last 3 years that has heavily invested in agri-technology, from not only looking at like our milk quality controls, but also our environmental and people sustainability within our farming businesses as well. So yeah, super passionate about AgriTech and very excited to be involved in this panel this evening / this morning and discussing everything with all of you. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Ash-Leigh. I must advise you as well that our second Irish farmer is having dire trouble getting in. So hopefully he'll join us. That's Bruce Thompson. But we will continue on. And if he does manage to get in, we will talk to him then. I'm just wondering, folks, and I'm going to ask you in alphabetical order just to get the ball rolling. What would you consider to be AgTech yourselves? What is AgTech for you? And I'll start with Ash-Leigh, alphabetical order of first name.
Absolutely, we'll go in reverse order, no problems at all. I guess I touched on it briefly just before, but I guess AgriTech to me is, it's involved in a way that is continuously improving our farming businesses. So whether that be in the lens of productivity, so looking at like milk and meat performance, but also improving our efficiencies on farm. So how can we do this job in a way that is quicker, faster, but also safer? And then I guess the other lens that I look at it from is also around the sustainability of the environment, which is, I can imagine, is just as important in Ireland as it is in New Zealand, with compliance and regulations that are now coming, I guess, down the funnel at us, but also looking at in the, I guess, context of sustainability for people. So I'm noticing quite a lot here in New Zealand that farms that are implementing and putting the investment into AgriTech is becoming, I guess, for those that are employees looking to join their next role or go to that next farm, they're looking and seeing like what technology and what AgriTech is sitting in behind the farm gate, and it's especially important for those younger ones coming through the sector. So I guess it's said many a times before, how do you make farming sexy? And I think AgriTech definitely plays a role in that.
Thank you, Ash-Leigh. Ben, I know you have particularly strong views on the matter, so I'd love to hear back from you as to what you view to be AgriTech, or useful AgriTech might be the way to present it.
I like it. It was when you were emailing round, I suppose, where does just normal development and I stop and AgriTech start is better facilities on the farm. That's not AgriTech. Milking parlours, probably not. It's just improved mechanical development. To me, a lot of AgriTech is aiding in management, putting figures onto stuff that you might have had a judgment before. It probably allows a little bit more hands-off from a management point of view, and to make life simpler. And going back to Abby's point on legislation, regulation, whether it be environmental or staff employment, there's a lot of staff legislation that has to be kept right. And I've found, since our staff numbers have increased to manage multiple staff, there's an awful lot of what holidays have been taken, rotas, all this sort of stuff that to do longhand can be very onerous, and things get missed. While if you can mechanize it a little bit with tech, it makes life a lot simpler and a lot fairer on everyone. The query I have on AgTech a little bit too, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done. Like tech for tech's sake, it's, you know, it's new, it's shiny, it's brilliant, but do you need it? Does it actually pay to do it? So I think you have to just be careful of what you use. I say I wouldn't like to knock robotic milking, but there's a lot of stories of robotic milking causing the problems that it's brought in to solve. And
around labor?
Around labor, yeah, that a system that goes 24 hours a day and things go wrong. In a lot of our systems, we need to try and keep them simple. It's very easy to get your system overcomplicated, and tech can add to that it can help that complication, but it can also add to it. So I think you need to be quite targeted in what tech you need, what it's doing for you. Do you actually need it, or are you just adding a complication that maybe a simple system which worked previously isn't the worst thing in the world either?
Sam, what's your take on what AgTech actually is, or what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, AgTech is quite a broad sort of term, I suppose. So sort of similar to what the other two panelists have mentioned around, you know, AgTech is used to solve problems or find efficiencies in farming systems. But I guess it sort of comes down a lot to AgTech itself, really around collaborating or creating data and then using that information or providing that information in a way that can be used to assist management predominantly. So whether that is, you know, on a production, so the cows and grass side of things, or from that regulation monitoring, or, you know, staff sort of things as well. So I think a lot of it, really comes down to data use, data creation, and I guess the collation of data from so many different metrics that you get within a farming system as well.
Sam, I'll stay with you for my next question, which is how do you see are the main drivers to adopt AgTech? I mean, what's the motivation? Is it internal to the business? Is it external because of regulatory considerations? How would you see your own motivations for AgTech? And I suppose it probably depends on the AgTech we're talking about. So what is your experience in relation to the motivation to adopt?
Well, I guess with any sort of investment or adoption of anything into a farming system, it really needs to be solving a problem that you have on farm and actually providing a solution to that. And so, you know, those problems are changing, you know, as our knowledge around what sustainability really is, you know, what impacts we're having on environmental impacts and things, as our knowledge around that changes, the problems that we need to solve change along with that. And so, you know, finding labour and staffing is another key area as well in New Zealand, especially around actually getting enough people on to work on farms. And so I guess the idea of where AgTech can really help, I think, is to help provide solutions to that problem. So whether it's, you know, providing some efficiency where you don't need half a labour unit or something, or providing you information where you're actually aware of some of your I guess impacts on the environment, so you can make changes to improve that. So again, it really comes down, I think, to what problem it is that your specific farm has got, and how you sort of adopt the right agri-tech, like we mentioned, around making sure that you're using the right agri-tech for a reason, and actually solve that problem that you've got on your specific property.
Just wondering, Ash-Leigh, maybe you might take that question. Have you experienced a situation where technology, new innovations in the agricultural sectors have actually changed your farming system or changed the farming systems you have dealt with? Or do you adopt, do you adapt the tech you adopt to your farming system? So which changes, or which needs to change, or does anything need to change?
Gosh, I feel like there were 3 questions within that question, Catherine. You're stitching me
There
up.
are.
Do you mind just repeating the first part of that question?
Yeah, so what I'm wondering is, you know, does the adoption of technology, of innovation, of innovative solutions for your farms, does that actually change your farming system, or do you actually adopt technologies that you have to adapt to your own farming system? I hope that makes sense.
I mean, the short answer is yes, it is going to change your farming system. I think maybe the second question to ask myself off that is, what is the length of time with change? Some technology can be adopted in behind the farm gates straight away, and you will see that return on investment and that change in your system automatically, whether it's increased production from your herd or decrease labour from your staff. I mean, there's different ways, but then I think you're also looking at the longevity of that change as well. So you could be looking at 12 months or even up to 5 years. I don't know, depending on the investment that you put in on behind the farm gate with AgriTech. And so I think like when you go through the decision-making process of what technology you do want to put behind the farm gate, you probably do need to weigh that up with your decision-making. Are you wanting a quick fix, or are you wanting to create, I guess, a resilient business, and this technology is going to be there operating the way it does today in 5 years' time? Because, yeah, I've seen a few times now AgriTech walk onto the farm, and it's walked off the farm pretty quickly as well due to farmer frustration. But I think also that comes down to, I guess, maybe an education piece. So has that farmer done their due diligence and the investment of what technology is going behind the farm gate? It is so expensive, generally speaking, to put in AgriTech. I think, you know, as farmers, we don't necessarily have too many dollars or euros or pounds floating around. And so, yeah, just when I go through the decision, or when I've gone through the decision process around what agri-technology comes in behind the farm gate, is not making that decision by myself. It's making that decision with, I guess, your trusted advisors, or those that work around you that know your business closely and deeply, so that they can help, I guess, challenge your thought process, and also challenge that if that is the right investment to go in behind the farm gate. So yeah, just a couple of my thoughts there on that. I know I went off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, that's kind of what's top of mind.
No, that's really good. Ben, we have been talking about the generality, I suppose, the sort of headline around AgriTech. What I'm wondering is, and I'll start with you, if there were two pieces of AgTech that you currently utilize on the farm that you could not do without, which would those two be currently?
Oh, number one is definitely the heat detection and health collars. I think they're fantastic. It allows, you know, you're managing, you can pick sick cows so much easier. Heat detection, it has allowed us, since we've started using sex semen, we can time our inseminations really accurately, while previously with tail painting or stuff like that, you're just looking, it's a heat, you do her at the next milking. While that's the heat, the collars and the health aspect of the collars have been really, really good. I certainly couldn't go back without that. Second tech, go on, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask you what is the second one?
All right, second one, it's becoming more and more, I think, our HR software, from a legislation point of view, from a rostering point of view. Everyone clocks in and clocks out, so we know everyone's hours. We can plan forward so much more now that we know sort of who's in. Holidays are booked ahead. Holidays are applied for. We can check the roster. Can we approve the holiday? And it's keeping the staff management a lot smoother and simpler and less sort of crisis days. I told you I was off next Wednesday, and I'd forgotten, or you know, or no, you didn't tell me. It's all there. It just adds a lot of structure to our day-to-day running, of making life a lot simpler from a staff point of view. Yeah, would probably be the two big things I would say.
Okay, Sam, can I ask you the same question? What are the top two and why?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that through as Ben was answering about how I'd answer that question, and I guess for me and my system here, probably the two that stick out is our animal recording software. So the likes of our Minder program that we use that tracks all of our animal records. A lot of decisions that I do on the herd is based around data that's in that system. So it provides a heck of a lot of value, and I guess not just to the short term, but also the long term, I guess, direction of the herd and where that's heading. And then the second one for me was probably actually our financial software, and the software we use for tracking our where our finances are at, doing our budgeting and things like that. You know, it's such tight margins on farm, and being price takers, you can only, I guess, control cost is the main area you can control. So having good financial software that provides really good modelling and budgeting easily is really valuable for me and my system. So yeah, they're probably my two top picks.
Thank you, Sam. And Ash-Leigh, can I ask you the same question, please? But I'm not sure whether you
Definitely.
operate your own system or your own experience from the systems you are dealing with. What would be the top two?
Yeah, two for me. The first one is quite regional to Canterbury here in New Zealand, which is irrigation systems. So we have centre pivots that go around and irrigate almost all of our farm, but the most important technology that sits behind that is the variable rate application. So we're heavily reliant on our storage ponds here of water, but also the application rate that we apply on the farm. We want to be using the water that we do have allocated to its best availability and not wasting water for the sake of wasting water, because again, environmental constraints and all that sort of stuff. So the ability to apply variable rate and then overlay that again with soil maps. So we have a variety of soils on the farm, and so those stonier light soils, potentially applying a heavier rate of water when the irrigator swings over it, and then the heavier clay soils are less application of water when the pivot goes over the top. So that has been incredibly game-changing on our farm. We didn't get it right the first time. It's been quite a long journey the last 10 years. We're one of the first farms in Canterbury to, I guess, invest in that technology, and we've had to do a full reconstruction of it 2 to 3 years ago, but it's up and running the way that it should be now. And so I guess acknowledging the fact that sometimes it doesn't always go to plan, but being willing and open to work through those problems to get to the end goal. So that's one. And then the second thing to me is milk monitoring. So that has come from a compliance lens here in New Zealand. So all New Zealand milk suppliers now need to provide consistent live data around milk temperature and monitoring and all that sort of stuff, and it feeds into the milk supply companies. That has been game changing, I guess, from a risk mitigation point of view on farm. So not wasting milk or having to dump milk because it's received antibiotics or something, can it? So that has been amazing and game changing, and I think has decreased, I guess, the volume of milk being wasted going down the drain. So, and again, I find that a really cool interactive tool for our junior staff on farm, so they can look whenever they like on their cell phones and see what's the milk temperature doing, what's the vat wash doing, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I love that. That would be my second pick as well, Catherine.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm curious about are some of the commonalities versus differences between our two countries in terms of what the drivers are. And I'm just wondering, and I'll start with Ben, because that might be something that I have in mind because of Ireland being part of the European Union with a lot of regulatory pressures on farmers. How much of the driver to adopt new technology is down to regulatory pressures versus sort of more internal business reasons, as far as you're concerned, Ben, maybe?
Yeah, well, certainly, I suppose, going back to Sam talking about the farm software package, like stuff like that would be there and very important for regulations, for stock numbers, for managing
Compliance.
that. Yeah, like from a regulation, going back to the staff regulation, well, the software package for that is very quick because we had a inspection from the Workplace Relations Commission this year, and you have that, you're very much on track. From an environmental nitrates point of view, I suppose you're working to a figure at the beginning. You know how much you can spread in the year. The tech doesn't really help so much on that. You're like you have worked out how much you can spread in the year, so you know what your spread rate is. We do have a software package that goes along with our soil samples, and we probably haven't engaged it as much as we should. Because we are keeping within the parameters of what we're allowed. Yeah, I suppose a lot of that is sort of done at the beginning of the year, that you know how much land you have available. It's not, I wouldn't call it tech as such, because it's a mathematical sum at the beginning of the year. Have you enough land, and therefore how much fertilizer and slurry you can spread. Yeah, no, we're probably not using tech so much on that, because it's a mathematical figure that we need to work out before we start.
What's the sense of the two New Zealanders among us? What's your sense in terms of what might be the main driver for, in more general fashion, for New Zealand farmers in terms of adoption? How much is regulatory pressure a factor these days? Ash-Leigh or Sam?
Oh, Sam may not disagree or agree with this, but I think it is, in New Zealand at the moment, it's quite regionally driven. So challenges that I'm facing down here in Canterbury versus challenges that Sam's facing up in the Auckland region could be very different. Water quality is huge down here due to the nitrate leaching, and I guess the development and expansion of dairy across the Canterbury Plains here the last 20, 30 years. So that's like priority, and that here is definitely driven by compliance and legislation. There's probably other areas that I think are coming at us hard and fast, which is around that carbon footprint as well, but that's probably looking at more of a national level. So yeah, we don't know what that looks like yet, and what compliance will play, or what technology will play as part of that. But yeah, Sam, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess what I was going to say, from an on-farm level in terms of the tech side of it, from the regulation lens, I think the AgTech that's sort of used is really just around information collection. So a lot of it's around having information readily available for when the auditors do come, to be able to show and prove what you're doing. Whereas I guess the AgTech that you're using in the business outside of the regulation landscape is definitely a lot more focused around driving efficiencies within the business. So that's probably the two kind of key differences. I think as the sort of carbon issue, I guess, gets more involved, or New Zealand agriculture gets more involved in that space, then that might change. You know, a lot of that AgTech that comes in for that regulation might be used quite a bit for helping drive efficiency on farm as well. But I'd say currently a lot of the AgTech that's focused on regulation is really just about data and information collection, and being able to.
But the tech has to be recognised by governments in your talking carbon areas. Like I know that the methane mitigation technology isn't there yet, but when it is there, it needs to be recognised. Likewise, protected urea and stuff like that. A lot of our issue here is they just want to reduce cow numbers, and the tech that can be used doesn't really, it's certainly not recognised. There's no talk of any of that being recognised. It's just a reduction, because it's a simple answer for a government, for a Department of Agriculture to implement and prove, I suppose.
And by recognizing, you mean having an acceptable or accountancy system for carbon? Is that what you mean, Ben?
Yeah, and like the proof from farm to farm. So one farmer can do it, the other one doesn't. But it's just they don't seem to want to go into the individual farm level. It's just a national thing, and therefore X amount of cows produce X amount of methane. Therefore, if we reduce it by X amount, we've reduced it by that amount. And it's simple. There's not a lot of detail in it, but it will tick the boxes they need to tick, rather than try to introduce different practices, because that's very much on a more farm basis, which is much harder to prove and I suppose calculate.
I suppose it's the challenge of translating national, never mind international targets into on-farm specific action and measurement of what that action is actually resulting in. No, I think that's a very fair point. And speaking of that specifically, I'm struck that looking at what's been happening in the recent past, a lot of technology and research and development of products and has gone around additives and emission aimed at emission reduction, whether they were feed additives or whether they are slurry additives or a variety of other systems, and I'm sure there'd be more ingenuity coming in that sector. What would be, and again, I'm going to ask this of everybody, whoever feels particularly strongly about it, what would be your expectations from a product that would have the potential to reduce emission? Well, I suppose it would have to have more than the potential. It would have to be proven to reduce emissions on your farms. What would make you adopt that product? Sam, you look like you're...
For me, I think I'll just start that off. For me, I don't think it's ever going to be a single product. I think there's going to be a number of different parts of the farming business where small changes can add up to a big overall change, and I think that's where I guess one of the challenges, especially with pastoral farming versus total mixed ration farming, is providing feed additives and things is a lot more challenging for a pastoral system. And so I think for the only way we're going to really move forward at long term is actually to have small amounts of change in lots of different parts of our system. So whether that's different breeds of varieties of grasses, or including different herbs or whatever into pasture swards that are known to reduce methane, as well as potential inhibitors in the animal, and as well as around our effluent management and things like that. I don't see one single area is going to be a silver bullet for us, really.
Mm-hmm. Any views on that, Ben or Ash-Leigh?
Yeah, like I would agree, totally agree. But again, it comes back to the recognition of those multitude of parts, and unless they are recognised and the credit is given, like from a water quality point of view, I think it's quite simple. Like, it's storage. A lot of storage is needed. It's not tech, it's storage. It's respecting buffer zones and spreading times of the year. But from a methane point of view, as you say, there is different herbs and swords you can do. There's genetics, and hopefully there'll be some level of feed additive, even if it's not a silver bullet feed additive. But all of those must be recognised. And going back to my previous point, it's much simpler from a government legislative point of view. Say, we'll just cull cows. It's cleaner. It's simpler. And it's easier to say, yes, we've done this. While Sam's point is absolutely valid, and I totally agree with him, but you have to get the credit for that.
So I think that if I could summarize your message to the Irish government, Ben, and to the Irish Department of Agriculture, is engage more with the technology rather than just looking at cattle number in the Irish situation. Ash-Leigh, any particular views as to what you expect, or what kind of technology you'd be looking at in terms of helping reduce emissions?
I guess kind of just like looping back to Ben, I've just learnt quite a lot from the conversation this evening around, I guess, the challenges by the sounds that you guys are facing against your government. It's kind of giving me a reflection moment to think, okay, maybe we are quite lucky and fortunate here in New Zealand. They have been listening. Our New Zealand government has been listening, and although it's not fully like through and documented yet, that if you put this technology in, you will receive X amount of emission deduction or whatever, but there is a narrative and there is open conversations happening there at the moment with our industry bodies and into central government to have these conversations and help farmers. I highly recommend, if you've got a chance, look up a partnership called He Waka Eka Noa, which is working with the industry groups here in New Zealand that are agricultural based with central government. And so the farmer's voice, I believe, is getting heard here in New Zealand. So yeah, I do feel a little bit sad hearing your story, Ben, and what the Irish farmers are going through. I don't really have much further to add on that, Catherine, but hearing you guys and what you're dealing with.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think we're coming close enough towards the end of our session. So I have a question for you, for all three of you, really. The next session, the next concurrent session, we'll gather, or rather we'll gather separately, researchers and innovators in two concurrent sections, and some of them at least are actually in this room with us. And what I'm wondering is, what would you, as farmers, you are the customers, you are the ultimate users of AgTech. You're the people whose needs and wants need to be satisfied. What would you want the researchers and the innovators, that is the AgTech companies that are developing products and services and software and all sorts of other things, what would you want them to focus on? What are maybe the top 2 issues you would like to see them focusing on? So maybe we'll go back into the alphabetical order, to be fair. Ash-Leigh, would you start on that?
Yeah.
What would be your top 2?
I just have one, to be honest. And the one for me is integration. So I have large frustrations that, and Sam's laughing because I think his answer might be the same. Just the lack of integration on farms. So different technologies not talking to each other, farmers having to duplicate their reporting and benchmarking and data analysis, and they're just getting frustrated. They're having to do it in 2 or 3 locations now. So that would be my call to action, is please work with each other.
Okay, we only have 1 minute left. So Ben, what would be your top one?
Top one, look at, I suppose, continue what they're doing. I think Teagasc are doing some fantastic work on research, and there's improvements in water catchment areas. How good if practices are implemented with water qualities and all that sort of stuff, that the reduction in cow numbers or the stocking rate is not needed. So continue what they're doing, but I suppose maybe lobby a bit more, put more pressure